Let's turn now to Otaviano Canuto. He's a senior fellow at the Policy Centre for the New South. He's also worked at the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund and the Inter-American Development Bank. Really appreciate your time, Otaviano. Now, how is the UN likely to focus on how to make cities more sustainable?
Sally, it's a pleasure to be here. The sustainability of cities is one of the goals, one of the 17 goals. And the indicators point to areas where the evolution should be towards having inclusive, safe, resilient to shocks, and sustainable. Fact of the matter is that over 50% of the world population, that is to say 7.8 billion people, are urban residents. And over 1 billion people live in slum-like conditions. So, and the cities create 70% of the global carbon emissions, and they account for 60% of the resource use. So, if we need to have, let's say, a better relationship of mankind with the environment, both not only in terms of carbon emissions, but also with respect to the natural resource use, we have to focus on how making cities more sustainable.
Some examples of sustainable cities or cities that are achieving their sustainability goals.
Well, so cities that have invested, for instance, in appropriate public transportation, because the motor vehicles are responsible for 75% of the carbon monoxide pollution, for instance, in the US today. And having public transportation may allow exactly taking cars out of the streets. Also, it's important for the cities to build and maintain public green space, to put emphasis on green building, that is to say, have buildings using smart heating and cooling systems, enhanced ventilation and insulation, to the extent of possible, the use of solar panels and green roofs, and so on. Having walkable and bikeable neighborhoods. A good example of that is Copenhagen. In Copenhagen nowadays, bicycles outnumber the cars by more than 5 to 1, right? And water conservation, waste management. There are several areas in which the cities have to invest to reduce not only the carbon footprint, but also to allow for less use of a natural resource. Recycling is fundamental, and so on.
So, of course, you know, it's all well and good for cities like Copenhagen, Hong Kong, Vancouver to have these highly sustainable, infrastructure. But what about cities in the developing world, like in Africa and South Asia? Is there a funding body to support cities in these locations to help reach their sustainability goals?
Not at all. That's a missing aspect. You know, we saw in the previous stream exactly a reference to the lack of fulfillment of the commitment made by advanced economies to transfer resource to developing countries to help them, let's say, fulfill their task with respect to climate change and so on. This is an issue. Exactly. But even among the rich countries, you don't have a common, homogeneous, good performance when it comes to sustainability. Of course, you mentioned Hong Kong. Seoul is also a good case, the Scandinavian cities and so on. But the point is that there is a lot to be done, even in advanced economies. In the case of developing countries, they need resource, they need the support in terms of technical assistance for better planning and so on. The task is huge.